Hello everybody.
Uh,
This is episode 13, so this one is a bad luck. I don't know.
yeah.
The one that's
How,
gonna get us cancelled.
you sound kind of tired, Kadmiel. Are you tired?
I am. I have been sleeping at different times
Hmm.
recently,
Yeah.
and you know how
That'll
I
mess
had
you
problems.
up, man. You get in a
No,
head fog.
no, but no. You know how I've been I during sophomore year I had problem with caffeine pills.
Yes, I do.
Oh, now I've started trying sleeping pills because I
Ooh, buddy.
I wouldn't sleep like no matter I was trying to sleep at midnight. I've been trying to develop that habit, but I'll be just on my bed like I'll get sleepy and then my mind will start racing and
Hmm.
I'll just start thinking all night until it's 4 a.m. And then
Yeah.
I gotta just sleep and wake up at 1 p.m. or something like that.
Hmm.
And it's not efficient because I'm not doing anything. I it's the summer, like I need to be productive and all of that.
Yeah.
And because I'm not I again that's my justification for trying that. Because like I sleep all night, but really I'm not sleeping. I'm kind of thinking all night and not sleeping at all. I and wake up late. I spend most of my day just on my bed.
Yeah.
So I'm trying melatonin gummies, and
Hmm.
this thing knocks you out.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, it knocks you out.
Yeah. I've heard that they knock you out really bad. I've known some people who have used them before, but I try to steer clear of that kind of stuff as much as I can and just stay a natural boy. Um,
It's like creating a problem with a pill and fixing it with another one.
yeah, like even when I'm desperate, I try to steer clear of that stuff because usually, well, at least from what I've seen, it seems like if you try to solve one problem with pills, you have a 50-50 chance of creating another problem with the pills, right?
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
guess it's not something I want to keep doing, but like at the same time, I've been waking up at 8.
Mm,
And I've never, like today, I even woke up at 6. I've never seen the sun rise in a while.
yeah.
And I'm
That
just like,
that's bad. Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my god, like I slept at midnight, I woke up at 6, and now I have all day in front of me to do the things. So I got what I wanted again,
Yeah.
right? Now it's a matter of not letting it become a problem, I guess,
Yeah. I'll
which I'm
say
an
this.
expert at.
It's one thing to not be able to watch the sunrise and wake up at like 10, 11 when it's already up. It's another thing to wake up and have like 3 hours of daylight and then the rest of your day is just nighttime.
Yeah,
That's a bad feeling. Like when you start
that's
to wake
about.
up at maybe 4 p.m.,
And the day
it
is eventually
affects your
over, and
headspace so much. Or like 4 to 6, somewhere in there.
yeah, I can't afford that. Honestly,
It kind
I
of destroys you, especially with
it does.
productivity, because at night you never do anything particularly
You
well.
don't, even if you want it.
Yeah, even
And
if you're well rested.
and I mean, this week I gotta finish a book. So you
Mm.
remember when I did this volunteer thing at the Iron Lab?
Yeah, I remember the volunteer
They
work you were
were
doing.
they were supposed to help me with my portfolio and resume.
Hmm.
That was one
Did
of
they
the
not?
gig. Like you get you no now they are. So I met
Oh,
the dude that supervised me
yeah.
during that volunteering, and he's super good at that. But he gave me a book to read for next week, next Monday, and I don't read, and it's
Yeah.
200 pages, so
Sheesh. Okay.
I cannot just wake up at 1 p.m.
What's
anymore.
the book?
It's called 20 minutes job search, the 20-minute job search, and it's kind of. I mean, I read the introduction yesterday, and it's raising a great point already,
Okay.
which is it's almost impossible today to find jobs via LinkedIn and all these things. Like it was saying, it was explaining how like the internet made it extremely simple to apply to job, but because of
Oh,
that, it made it extremely difficult for employers to pick a job
yeah.
because so many applicants. Like you can do one portfolio and apply to 5,000 job, and everybody's doing the same thing.
Yeah,
So they find
like
themselves
all
with,
the advice I've ever heard in my life has been apply to as many places as possible,
oh my
right?
god, yeah, this book
So,
is
and that's what
saying,
everyone's doing. They're applying to as many places as possible,
this book is saying it's not really working because these people, they are not interested in hiring the best. They don't want to spend all their time searching for a candidate. They just want someone good enough. So
Yeah.
they just skim through this portfolio. They just skim through that. And this book is essentially defending the point that most of the job, even like the job search ends before it even starts. It's through referral. Like
Yeah.
you go through a friend or like a teacher, an employer will ask a teacher, hey, I have this gig. Give me a student to do it.
Yeah.
And essentially that's how before they even post the job, they already have someone in mind.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
this job is saying to do something which is networking,
Ugh. Yeah.
which yes, something you
I
hate, but
Well, that's the thing. I don't think I hate it because I think what networking can really be is it can just be creating relationships with people where you end up learning something that's kind of in line with your career. Like it forces you to interact with people who can teach you things, right? And
yeah,
then maybe there's a chance they'll put you in touch with someone who's going to hire you. So I guess in that sense, it's not. I don't find it too bad, but if I'm going into it under the guise that I'm just creating these relationships so I can get a job out of somebody, I think then it's kind of like an art form and it gets a lot harder. It's really like there's a line you cross from, oh, I'm going to get to know as many people as possible and maybe one of them will get a job. The line you cross from
yeah.
there to I'm going to try to manipulate as many people as I can so one of them is going to give me a job, you know?
I
I
don't think
I
it's
feel like
manipulation.
there's a mental barrier there, right?
Okay,
And mm,
there is a such a thing as being weird, right?
mhm,
Like you can, but like also like I don't think it's wrong when an employer that could potentially need like applicant in the future, like they don't want to go through that process of 5,000 portfolios and
yeah.
look skimming through them. So they are essentially they come to network themselves, like they actually come to network with students in these
Hmm,
situations. And like when I went to the galas, for example, for the co-ad, like people were handing me cards and like they come to network. So if they are doing that dance with you, I don't think you are cheating them out of something.
yeah. Because they're not schmucks, right? Like they
Yeah,
know when you're being ingenuine, but
yeah. Like they know you need a job.
yeah.
And they also know that they might need applicant later. And they absolutely don't wanna go through the process of like going through hundreds of portfolios. So they're like, I'm gonna remember you, dude. Like you talk and you chat and he's like, okay, here's my card. If you have a portfolio, send it to me.
Yeah.
And it's not cheating them out of something.
Hmm. Well, okay. I don't. Cheating them wasn't my point. Because again, I don't think you can really cheat someone from a place that disadvantageous. But it's more just like I get uncomfortable when I deep down I know my goal is just to squeeze a job out of somebody, and if I wasn't fixated on that, I wouldn't even be talking to them in the first place. That makes me uncomfortable. But I think there's a way to do this where your priority is genuine interest and uh, care for the people you're talking to. And then
Hmm.
you can always keep that job thing secondary. And then that makes me feel more natural. I don't know. Like,
I mean, whatever makes you comfortable, at least, I guess. But I was also like, I'm on the point of like, your primary reason for talking to them could actually be a job, and everything that comes around it is like what makes it easy. And I don't really feel uncomfortable.
hmm,
Like, at least through my life, I mean, I'll talk about, for example, my parents. My dad, at least for his generation, the people he grew up with, he is in many measures the most successful of them. So people do call him for help. People do
mhm,
call him for like, whether they are friend or whether they are not friend, they do call him for like, hey, I need this, hey, I need that.
yeah,
And he does not really feel cheated out of something. Of course, some people are weird, especially when they come to. I mean, some people have dared to come to me, the kid, and be like, "Hey, say your dad, I say hi," and he
mhm,
does not appreciate that.
yeah,
He, but like at the same time, he knows the position he is in, like that he can provide this help, and he does want to provide that help. So
yeah,
like when someone comes to him and asks for it, he's not like, "Oh no, you are being ingenuine. No, I'm gonna you're not interested in me," because he knows like for this person to do this by themselves, it will take them years, but I can do it in a phone call. It's
mhm,
not they come, they are interested, of course, but at the same time, I'm in this position where I can do this.
yeah,
So it's no, it should be normal for me. It should be. I think they find it normal that you come to them for job. They are not surprised. They are not mad. They are not like, he's coming. Here's another student that needs a job. Of
yeah,
course, they were in this position at some point in their
mm,
lives.
yeah. I don't know. I want to agree with you and be like, yeah, there's nothing weird about it at all, or nothing uncomfortable about it at all. Hmm. Something is though for me, and maybe that's just something I got to get over. But I can't help but feel kind of unnatural if the only reason I'm talking to someone is so I can work for them somehow, you know? Or like the only reason I'm talking to someone is so they can put me in touch with somebody who I can work for, you know? And the only reason I keep up with them and I'm really polite and nice to them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
feels weird. I think for me it feels weird because I am so not one to typically run around and make a ton of acquaintances. I
Yeah.
don't like acquaintances, you know? I like to have maybe like a little solar system of like 8 to 15 people that are I'm really close with and that's all I want, you know, and all the acquaintances can go away. But
Yeah.
I feel like in order to be successful in a job market, you kind of have to have a bunch of acquaintances and get good with the art of making acquaintances and keeping them, you know.
I do
That
agree,
that
and
feels
again,
weird
like,
to me, you know? And I think
but
that's just because of who I am. I think it might be easier for
yeah,
someone like you and definitely easier for some people even that are even more keyed into that, but
I would say one of the reasons I will literally bond with someone just by pure interest is because I don't ever want to be in a position where I need something and
mm,
someone can give it to me if I could have just say hi.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You know, like we don't need to be the best friends in the world. And again, like we can just meet and be like, "Hi, goodbye, see you." But maybe one day, like I need a nail, and you have a
Yeah,
nail, and I don't want
yeah,
to be like, "Hey, hi, I know that I passed you last time. I did not say hi, but I need your nail." Like that's even
yeah.
weirder.
I guess. Yeah, it is kind of like reviving the neighborhood vibe, where it's like you go to your neighbor's house and ask for a pound of sugar or something in
Yeah,
exchange for
right.
something else, right? And you
Yeah,
don't know them super well, and you don't really hang out that much, but you're baking and you're short one item or something, right?
yeah. And like, this person that's helping me for my portfolio, I tested them like if you ever need me again for a volunteer, like I'm here. But it's again like I'm adding you to this network. And obviously you are in a better position than me. And you know I'm doing it.
Hmm.
Now if you find it weird, but like then I wanna ask you, would you reject someone if you were in a position where you could help them and they actually come to you just for that reason? Because you could help them.
It depends, because if there is someone who is more qualified for what I need, or I think there's going to be someone who's more qualified, then I can reject them, right? But I think that a lot of people, even if they do feel like they need to reject someone because it's not in their best interests to help them out in the way that they want to be helped out, they still have that desire to help out somehow. So I just think that beyond offering the job, it's usually kind of hard for them to offer much more unless you keep really close contact with them. And in order to keep close contact with them, you kind of like have to find common ground. And that can be
Hmm.
weird if you're doing it cold, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, and hmm, I don't know. I think it's one of those extremely conditional things where there's all kinds of people and all kinds of power differentials and circumstances in networking. You know,
yeah,
there's so many different examples of it that, like, so many different examples we could make for how two people are going to interact in this kind of sphere, that I think it's just a mixed bag. But
yeah.
I think
I mean,
people are maybe more sensitive to when it goes wrong than when it goes right, you know?
definitely.
And I
And
think
there are,
that's why everyone kind of has a bad feeling about it.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I've tried to network with people and like it felt weird and I stopped.
Yeah.
Like they felt like there was this impression like, oh, maybe I'm being too obvious about it. And I'm like, no, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop texting you. Like, I understand. Like,
Yeah.
but you know my need. You know why I came. At least one of the main reason I came. And if it's not your vibe, like I'm not gonna harass somebody, but I'm not gonna stop doing it altogether because I need that help, and some
Yeah.
people can't.
Yeah.
Like if you need some, I mean, it's easier to refuse to ask for help when it's you who needs that. But if it's
Mhm.
someone you love that needs that, you would never hesitate to ask anyone for help.
Yeah.
So sometimes we tend to not treat ourselves the way we would treat others. Like you would treat others the best, but like you kind of refuse good thing for your own self.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's good for you or for the people you love to put yourself in a situation. I guess for me it's like I want to succeed. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I cannot.
Mm.
Especially if it just costs me a hi. How are you doing? My name is Kadmiel.
Yeah.
You know, If it's that and give a smile, I'll give it. Like it's I have not lost something big that day,
Yeah.
and it can come back later. But that's my vision of it. And you know what I was thinking? I'm like, one of the best way to network is just to invite people to a podcast.
Yes. Yes. That's good. But then
Like
again, we aren't really an industrial designer podcast or something like that.
I put us when I post our episode, I put the hashtag industrial design because
Really?
we do, yeah, we do happen to talk about it. We've talked about it
Yeah,
on
we
few
do.
episodes, and
It
that's what
is
we study.
something that we do sometimes.
Yeah, and again, like if we can get a even a teacher or an employer to talk on the podcast, not only it's a benefit for both of us because it's networking essentially, but
Yeah.
we're just chatting.
Are you sure
But
you
also,
want to give away our grand strategy on the podcast where everyone can hear it?
yes, we are
We
not
don't want them
first,
to know that they're being manipulated to hire
not at
us.
all. I'm saying it plain and simple.
Yeah.
They can hear me right now. It's episode 13. I don't
Yeah,
care if
this is
it's bad or.
coercion.
I'm a good talker, guys. Just
Yeah.
come over. I know a lot. I watched one day of worth of YouTube videos, and like I'm not gonna interview. It's easy for me to get excited about anyone anyway.
Mm.
Like genuinely, I haven't found myself with someone where I was like, I really don't want to talk to that person.
Yeah.
Like unless some past history happened between the two of us. So like I'll have someone and I'll be like, hey, what's up? And it's easy for me to get excited about someone. Like, oh, that's what you do. Tell me more about it.
Hmm.
And I'm being genuine, like, but that's networking is something I'm gonna do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have much of a choice. Um,
I don't. I'm in a particular
yeah.
situation
At
of
least if your goal is to thrive and climb ladders and run around a lot, you know.
it's not even that. You know, when I applied online to job, one of
Yeah.
the things they ask is can you legally work in the US? Which is kind of because
Ah,
I need
I've
sponsorship.
identified a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, like I need sponsorship to work here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most employers usually do not want to do it.
Yeah.
If they do it, they're a big company. If they just want to employ you for cheaper,
Hmm.
because you also don't have any choice. And
Yeah.
again, like what you're gonna do? I have a friend. She is one of the smartest students in Ivory Coast. Literally, she met the president, and she came. She was
Oh.
studying in New Jersey,
Yeah.
and she got a job at Microsoft recently. And that's literally, and she did her bachelor and her master at the same time.
That
That's
is
literally
brutal.
what it took for her to get an entry job at Microsoft as an international student. When
Yeah.
she had to be so good that they were like, we cannot find that in the US right now. No American student are doing their bachelor and master all at the same time and having grades like that.
Yeah. To
And
be fair, just real quick, um, I see the point you're making about the uh like foreign students coming in or like foreign anybody coming in. It's going to be really hard to nail a job fairly, right? Uh, or at all. Um,
mhm.
but let's see. Gosh dang, I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I'm going. You'll have to cut this out.
I mean, you didn't
My
say
head
anything.
is my head is just such a fog right now, dude. But I'm trying very hard. Um,
Why are you
hmm?
tired? Like,
Yes. You know how I said I was waking up at 6 every day?
Yeah.
That wasn't entirely true. I woke up at 9 today because last night I was up kind of later than usual. But um, in any case, I think that's had a certain effect on how I'm feeling today. That's why I'm drinking caffeine right now.
Yeah,
So,
like bro, you gotta undo everything studio did to you,
yes,
if it did
that's
you
what
at
I'm
all.
trying to do. Honestly, like I've been sleeping a lot better than I have in the past 2 years. Um,
That's
right
one
now,
thing.
yeah, which is huge. Um, but
We gotta get you off the caffeine, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sleeping pills? No, they're just gummies, and it's a flower. Melatonin is a flower.
Oh man, I can't do that. I won't accept it into my life. I would
Dude, it's
rather
like
live in head fog.
you're already taking a plant, caffeine. It's not even a plant, I think it's a fruit.
Yeah, well, this is as far as I'm going to go, I think.
Well, listen, like, you saying one substance is okay, the other is not, like, that's kind of very
Man, you
deliberate.
gotta draw the line somewhere, okay? This is where I've chosen to draw my line.
I
Don't
mean,
at me,
melatonin is lower than caffeine in terms of what it
okay?
does to you. So
You know,
all I'm saying is that
stop it, Kadmiel.
there is no violation of principle if you take melatonin.
You're shattering my ignorance. I won't accept it.
It's allowed in the US. It's not illegal.
Stay away from me. Let me live my broken lifestyle.
Yeah, but like
It's
the more
comfortable.
I was thinking about it, like right, like these websites already are set up to refuse me
Yeah.
because it's gonna already put me in a category if I answer, because I'm obviously gonna answer yes. I mean no, I cannot legally work. I need sponsorship. So
Hmm.
it's already puts your portfolio somewhere. And that's how like they are not looking for hard candidate.
Hmm.
Essentially, they are not looking for someone. They are not looking for the best necessarily. They're
Yeah.
looking for someone that's good enough. And they are not looking to do paperwork. They just want, 90% of applicants are Americans. Like, we're gonna get one of our own, right? So it's like the bar is higher for me to get the same job.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think it's unfair at all. But I'm also like, okay, I gotta do more.
Yeah.
I
Well,
gotta,
when I say unfair, I just mean like we're not starting from the same starting line. You
yeah,
know, like because you've moved from one place to here.
yeah.
Um, you're starting like 30 meters behind me. So
I would say
in our
it's
race,
longer than that.
in our 500-meter race.
I would say that for me to get the same job as you, I have to be twice as better than you, literally,
Yeah.
because it's very. And again, that's how it works. And I guess no, like I understand that America first. Like I would never be against that, but then I'm also like, don't wonder why I'm doing like everything that is in my power to to put myself out there. Like
Yeah.
and I'm ready for that. Like that's a situation I accept because. And when I came here, I used to be shy, which is one of the things. Like when my parents saw me for the first time on a stage doing like the international student end of year banquet, they were
Hmm.
like, "Is this our son like on a stage with a microphone, like giving speech to people?"
Oh, yeah. Huh.
Uh, I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of like what you get when you travel in a country that speak another language, another culture, and you're all by yourself. it's not a matter of, oh, I'm not gonna talk to these people because I want to be in my place. It's like I don't know where I am and I need to ask someone where I am so
Yeah.
I know where I'm going. So you need to approach people and just be like, hi, how are you doing, where am I? And this and that, and ask questions, because that's, and the more you do it, the less afraid you are of that. You're like, oh, I could ask even more. I could ask more than how is your day. I could be like, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to go out with me today? And this is our ad break. This podcast is brought to you by keeps.com. Keep your hair. Me and Nick have a good set of hair, as you can see. If you are bald, you can also cut it. But buy Keeps. This podcast was not supported by Keeps, by the way. We're just kidding. But it will be good to have Keeps money or any advertiser that want to support the podcast. And Nick
Hi,
is back.
I'm back. Yeah. Um, recording in a public space, but it's okay. Uh, sorted everything out.
Oh, so that's why your background is different.
Yeah, yeah. Again, okay. Uh, you know how I showed up 30 minutes late to this recording session, as is my practice.
Yeah,
Um,
I did it like twice.
yeah, what happens is I'll be sitting there doing something kind of mundane, and then I'll glance at my phone for like the first time in 8 hours, and I'll see that you messaged me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have to record. Um, and so I'll frantically like throw everything together and try to find a place where I can set up my laptop where there's a good background and good lighting and everything. Um,
Yeah.
so this is what we did today. We're in the living room.
Oh, the living room.
Yeah.
Bruv, I thought you were outside, like I'm in a museum somewhere.
Oh that. Oh yeah. No. No.
That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. Maybe I'll do that sometime. I'll try to find
Every
somewhere
time I every time we record, we're in a different place.
Yeah, that might be fun. There might be something
I
good with
can't
that.
do that. I don't have a car. I can just change my glasses, but when I
Mm,
wear them, I don't see anything
yeah,
in that room. It's so hot outside. It's obscene
yeah,
how
it
hot
is
it
hot
is.
out.
It is.
Sidebar: do you want to hang out sometime this summer? Just like I don't know if you're gonna have a lot of time to do that, but
I can have. Okay, so this is the state of things right now.
yeah,
Anytime this summer, I should go to Ivory Coast for some day to just extend my visa.
okay,
That's the only travel, and potentially go to Spain if I get if the visa takes too long. I just come back here,
okay,
but I don't know the date yet.
hmm,
So if I know a date, if you tell me a date, that's something I can prepare in advance. And if for some reason the travel comes, I would inform you also in advance.
okay. So like we could plan something, but you might have to cancel later.
Yes, we will need a date. We'll need,
Okay,
or at least a frame of, not like a 3 weeks thing, but more like, how about this week?
yeah,
And as this week approaches, I'll be like, okay, I'm not traveling. We can hang out. Or like, oh, I'm traveling this week. Let's do it next week.
okay. Is there anything in particular you'd want to do?
I don't know. I don't know Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to think about it. We can talk about that later, but
Wasn't there a submarine here you talked about?
it's not a submarine, it's a battleship.
A battleship. I mean,
Yes.
a submarine is not a battleship.
No, it's not. They're actually completely different. They
I
perform
thought
very
the
different
battleship was
roles.
a family of thing. Like it's a battleship. It's a ship that goes into a
Oh
battle.
no, no, that's not the definition, friend.
That's
No,
a
no, no,
word.
no.
What is a battleship? It's a boat with a gun on it.
Yeah, actually, they don't make battleships anymore. They make frigates.
Bro, it's a
Battleships are obsolete.
like a battleship. It's a ship that goes into a battle.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no, 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 no.
That's so straightforward.
Yeah,
That's so someone that speaks English as a second language understand word. Like say battleship. I'm like, submarines.
yeah, no. You're slandering the Navy boys. They're all rolling in their graves.
Honestly, I think English did it with some French word. I can't recall. Actually, yes, I recall the word finesse.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's a word specifically for a group of people or just used in general. To finesse someone is like to cheat someone of something. Like,
Yeah,
but like what?
because it
That's
means you're being like delicate. You know.
yes, and like finesse is completely different in French, and it's a French word. Like,
Well, okay. It doesn't. So finesse. When you use the word finesse in English, it doesn't always mean that you're like cheating someone. It can also mean like, oh, that person has a lot of finesse. That can mean okay, that person is really delicate with their work, and it doesn't have to necessarily have like an antagonistic connotation,
it
but it
absolutely
can
does not.
have an antagonistic connotation.
It's absolutely not what it means in French. French, it's you. Finesse is literally like how thin something is.
Huh.
Like how
Oh
thin.
yeah, okay.
That's the only use I can recall of 18 years in French using finesse. Is just the finesse of something.
I wonder how that transitioned, you know?
You
Like
tell
how
me.
did that get lost in translation?
I absolutely don't know, and it's kind of upsets me sometimes because I mean now I use the word, but I use it and I giggle because I'm like, when you say finesse, I expect a number after.
Yeah.
I expect how thin it is. That's usually what I would expect.
You know,
Uh,
something that disturbs me very much about English is all the catchphrases, or they're not catchphrases, they're just phrases that I use that I don't know the meaning of at all.
oh
Like
yeah,
when I say the whole 9 yards, I stopped one time a couple days ago and I was like, wait a minute. I don't actually know what that means. Like, I know what it means. Like, it means everything and a little bit extra, or like everything available to you when you say, "Hey, I'm using the whole 9 yards," or like I'm going the whole 9 yards. It means you're
yeah.
doing everything. But where that actually came from or what it's referencing, I was like, I don't know what that is. So I went on the internet and I looked up, "Hey, where does this phrase come from?" Nobody knows. Like
Wow.
straight up, no one knows what it means. Apparently, it showed up in like the early 1900s, and their best guess is that it has something to do with the length of fabric needed to make articles of clothing. But beyond that, no one has any idea where the phrase comes from.
I recently learned the word what attaboy meant, which is like that's a boy.
Yeah, or like,
That's some
good job, like,
yeah, like,
that's my
that's a
boy,
boy.
right?
You know, like, what? Like Atta? Like
Atta? Yeah,
that,
what is Atta?
yeah, like that has nothing to do with that's a.
Yeah, yeah.
But just imagine my face the first time. Me and all the Chinese people I was taking the English program with were
Ooh.
like, we heard that in the US they measure things in feet.
Oh yeah.
Just imagine us. We all use millimeters, centimeters, meters, which are word specific. They have no double meaning.
Mhm.
Millimeters is literally that. Feet can be a measurement, or it can be your
Yeah.
feet.
Or like, okay, like milli, centi, deci, you have
Yes,
all these established like subcategories of a standard measurement. So that's why metric makes a lot of sense and that's why everyone uses it. But if you go to imperial, it's like, okay, a foot and a yard, there's nothing in the word to suggest how they relate to each other.
to each
You
other.
just kind of have to know, right?
It is
Like,
insane. It just imagine like we take things like when you learn a language, first you always take everything literally. So like 5 feet, and they're like, whose feet?
yeah. And then
Like
wait, is foot and feet the same thing? Do you know?
yeah, like
Right?
we're just staring at our feet, and I'm literally put one of my foot in front of another, and I'm like, is this 2 feet? Is
Yeah.
this is this
No.
what that means?
Yeah, and then inches, right? Like
Inches means
inches have
inches.
like you cannot tell how many inches are in a foot by the name. You can't tell how many
Yeah,
feet are in a yard by the name. You can't tell how many feet are in a mile by the name or
it
yards are in
is.
a mile. You
It
just
is
have no way of
crazy.
knowing unless you just kind of grew up with it and your whole life
And
is
to
built.
this day, I'm still confused about it.
Yeah, but I honestly, there's a part of me as a native boy that kind of likes it that way.
Because I guess, yeah, I mean, I see like you used to it. Like, it's using feet and like inches. It's like speaking Chinese. You have an easier time if you were born there
Yeah,
and learn that. That was the first thing you learn. It just becomes like when you walk into it, you just like, what?
yeah, or like
What
how
is,
there's a couple different variants of Chinese, like right, like there's the I think it's Mandarin,
yeah.
Cantonese,
But
couple
even
other.
the way the language is set up is unlike any other language.
Yeah,
Like when, for example, like centimeters, like meters, it can translate through cultures.
yeah,
Feet for can't you cannot really export it and just expect people because it's not like this organized. Where like if you can only learn what a millimeter is, you are you are a step away of understanding, like you are a foot away to understand what a decimeter, centimeter,
yeah,
millimeters
because
is.
it's just factors of 10 basically.
Yeah, you just have to understand one of those things and you can understand the whole thing. When
Yeah,
like if you got what a foot is, you don't know what an inch is unless you're being told what it is.
yeah,
And guess what? There is the yard too, which I have no idea what a yard is.
yeah, and also okay, so you're trying to understand what a foot is. Well, you look at your feet and you're like, I guess that's a foot. Wrong, right?
Yes,
Like,
that,
okay,
that
or
is
like,
how I thought about it.
oh, what's a yard? Well, I have a backyard. Is it like that? No, not
No, I
even
didn't
close,
even.
right? Because
I still
everyone's
no.
backyards are like several, I don't know, maybe like 50 square feet or something minimum.
I've
But
spent 5 years in the US. I still don't know what a
yeah,
yard
I
is.
don't know.
Like I have
Wait,
no like
oh,
concept
like
of what a yard is.
a yard is in the unit of measurement, or a yard is in the space.
A yard as a unit of measurement. I have
Okay,
no.
yeah. Do you know what a foot is?
I know what a foot is. I know I'm about six of it, so I
Yeah.
divide myself in six.
Okay, a yard is 3 feet. That's it. So you are, if we're measuring you in yards and you are 6 feet, then you are 2 yards.
Are you kidding me? I thought it was way longer than that. I thought a yard was like the size of my room,
No,
like my whole
no, no,
apartment.
no, not even close.
I thought a yard was like a kilometer. So
No, dude, no.
a yard
And
is
see,
that
that's the
small.
thing. You would think it would be, right? Because you have this concept of the yard as a space, like okay, someone has a house, and then in the back of their house they have a yard, right? That's where they
Yes.
set up like, their grill and they have their pool back there or something. No, not even
Wow.
close. It's really short.
No, I thought the yard was so big.
No, dude, it's
And it
really, really,
sounds
really
big.
short.
It's like yard. Like it sounds like something that's big.
Yeah, like 9 yards is when I say the whole 9 yards, that's 27 feet.
That is so not long at all.
Yeah.
Wow. You know you changed my life right now. like,
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm here
like
to
I'm
help you
gonna be
out
like
if you ever need to know
2 yard
imperial.
and I'm gonna look at my size and divide it by two and be like, okay, it's half of Kadmiel. A
Yeah,
yard
watch
is
me be
half.
totally wrong though, as everyone like calls me out and is like, actually, a yard is 4 feet. You know,
Yeah, this 4 feet. No, how would you feel if the US decided to leave the empirical system? Like,
I would be disappointed, but I understand.
we're like
Like,
disappointed, but
here's the thing: keeping the imperial measurement system is completely irrational and almost psychopathic. But
it's
that's
so,
why I want to keep it.
it's so, it makes, it makes every, like, I feel like if the US wasn't the first in the world, people would have ditched it already.
Yeah,
Like, the only reason is because the US is the top dog. People are like, I guess we're gonna do it, but
let's go. I
mark
love
my
it.
words.
Yeah.
but they, but
We're even torturing ourselves to a certain degree because like that when engineers and people who actually get really serious about measurement need to start working in that regard, they go to metric anyways
yeah,
because it's just easier to
they
work
have
with the rest of the world.
not
So
even with the rest of the world. Like
it's
science is
almost like
easier
a
if you use
cultural burden that we've
yes.
chosen to take on as a nation.
Science science
to,
is so
to
much
learn
easier.
two different measurement systems because we just feel like it.
Yeah, like oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. I hope the US get I mean there are so many things. I mean, you know what? I went to an Ivorian birthday recently and I
Mhm.
found out that, I still we have a culture. Like we have a thick that it's so strange that Ivory Coast is such a tiny country with such a strong identity
Mhm.
that even the way we speak French was so particular that the French dictionary acknowledged that
Oh,
it's
like they
actually
acknowledge that you're
a
just a different dialect entirely.
yes, that it's even going out of it's not even it's half of French to this day. But even that, like just being in this culture again and being like, because I'm not exposed to that at all in the US. Yeah, yesterday I was calling my friend that's working at Microsoft, and I look at a lot of when someone goes abroad, they usually find the people that are like them, but in this country.
Yeah.
So, like when I went to Spain, you find an English person, and they're usually hanging out with the other English people in Spain.
Yeah.
You find an American in Spain, and you find another American, and all the Americans. Like you just find one, and you find all the
Yeah.
others.
Or like even the people who settle down there and actually live there and get their citizenship, um, they'll end up forming these communities that are like tiny versions of their home cultures, right?
Yeah,
Like
and
a little Chinatown kind of stuff, or that you
exactly.
find in the U.S.
And that's what I guess. I mean, it's a normal human behavior, and like
Yeah,
it's not that it's wrong or right. But
absolutely.
I was coming to that birthday, and I'm like, I might be like the only Ivorian I know that you find me, and you don't find any other Ivorian around me.
Yeah, you.
It's
That
a
is
dead
rather
end.
unusual. I do think it's weird that you hang out with me of all people.
Yes, it's weird to other people too. Like even my little brother, he gets along with Americans a lot, but he has the Ivorian. Like he found them,
Yeah,
and I'm like, when I came to the US, it took me 1 year to find the first Ivorian.
yeah. Like, what are you doing hanging out with Emron and May all the time and stuff?
It's
Like,
every time I sleep and I wake up and I'm like, that is insane.
hmm,
That I talk to these people and they understand me and
yeah,
like I can make joke and they will laugh. Like especially joke because it's like I understood the humor.
hmm,
Because there is such a thing as Ivorian humor. Like of course there are some jokes that are universal. They work every like I don't know, someone falls on the floor, most likely there is one person across every country in the world that will laugh about it.
yeah,
Like that some jokes are universal, but coming here and just understanding the culture enough to make jokes that an American will giggle at and be like, "Hey, you got it," and I'm like, "Wow, I had to learn your
yeah,
what this thing was about for me to make that joke."
yeah, yeah. I would say if you said you were an American citizen, I wouldn't question that at all. You know, or
Even with
like
the
if you
accent,
said you kind of grew up around here a lot, I wouldn't necessarily question that too much. You have a very thick accent, but some people have parents who are first generation immigrants, right? So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
they still uh, lean on their kind of cultural roots really
yeah.
heavily and teach that to their kids, right? Um,
But I'm not kidding. Like I'm doing my resume right now, and it's around like that fact that a lot of things that have gone well for me in this country, and a lot of things that I've succeeded at come from the fact that essentially getting along with that culture is my greatest accomplishment.
hmm,
Like in my
yeah,
life so far, that was a wild bet. I could
yeah,
not have imagined. Like when I was coming here, it was absolutely clear in my mind that I was immediately coming back to Ivory Coast. At
yeah,
no point did I imagine that it would go that well.
yeah,
Like even when I came here.
mhm.
And again, like my life has changed to a point where like again, 6 months after coming here, my parents are like, well, we moved too.
Yeah,
And now it throws your life away. And now you're just like, oh my god, I have no anchor point around the world anymore.
yeah, hmm,
And but my parents literally were talking to me. I was talking to my dad today, and they're like, "Yeah, we keep insisting like make your life in the US, bro. Like
hmm,
find a way to stay there and like do your life there. Like we didn't send you there to come back to go back to Ivory Coast. We are not there. We don't
yeah.
want you there."
But then again, at the end of the day, it is your life and where you want to go. I mean, some things will be easier than others, but you know,
Yeah, I
like if
was
you
thinking.
really wanted to go back to Ivory Coast, you could go back.
I just take a plane and go there.
Yeah.
And, but like the birthday I went to recently reminded me how much I'm Ivorian actually.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you was you say that I mean you hang out with like me and Emron and all those people and how they're again you're not really hanging out with your expected flock of
Yeah,
people, you know. So, do you do you notice differences between like Emron and me and May and those kinds of people and maybe more like Ivory Coast sort of crew? Um, and how do you feel you fit into all that? You know, like, do you feel like you're still do you feel like you still click with the people you used to click with, or do you feel like you're transitioning over, or do you feel like you're neither and you can do both at the same time equally well? um, do you feel like
It's
you're neither and you don't really fit with either?
uh, it's an ever evolving question.
Yeah, it's a very
Okay,
open-ended question
yeah.
too,
So
because
I'm at
I
I'm
say there are these two groups, but that may not actually be the case for you, you know?
yeah. In term of Ivorian culture, I am from Ivory Coast. First and foremost, I spent the first 18 years of my life there.
Yeah,
The culture is in me, the language is in me, the talk is in me. Like I'm undeniably an Ivorian when I hang out with Ivorians.
yeah.
But they do notice subtle differences.
Hmm.
They do notice that the American uh, culture has influenced me. It has influenced some opinions. It has influenced uh, even the way I speak French
Hmm.
a little bit. Where like I would do those little subtle missteps where you know that he's not completely with us anymore.
Man,
But
I wish I could hear that, or I wish I had an ear for that, you know?
but like I would, for example, I don't know what do we do that. Okay, this is one crazy thing, but I guess we it's okay. It's not that big of a deal actually. But pizzas, for example, European and Ivorian eat it with a fork and a knife.
Yeah.
American just grab it and eat it,
Yeah.
which I might do it when I go back, and they'll be like,
Oh,
"What?"
yeah.
They'll be like, "What is this savagery? Like, are you an animal?"
That's so great.
But they're probably not gonna do it. Okay, this is one thing. Mexican food,
Mhm.
bread, tortillas with rice. We absolutely don't do mix those two together. If you were to
Really?
say to an Ivorian bread and rice, he will look at you like this is the most insane thing I've heard.
It is
And that
kind
was
of insane, you
and that
know?
was me when I came here until I ate a burrito and I'm like, no, that's actually good.
Yeah, like, well, having eaten it, there is something a little bit weird about it. Unless you flavor the rice a certain way,
Oh yes,
it does, like, if it's just normal rice,
it doesn't
it
fly.
doesn't feel like it should work, or like you really have to be creative to find a way to make that work, and somehow people have. But
Yeah,
that also kind of begs the question, I wonder how much stuff does work together that cultures haven't really broached, you know?
yeah.
Like what kinds of things could work together and just nobody has tried yet? Or like there's a very particular way to make these two ingredients that ordinarily do not work together at all work together, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Now, talking about Americans, they obviously detect the accent, so that gives away
Yeah.
that
I mean,
I'm
that's
not
kind of
really.
the obvious, like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, oh duh,
uh,
difference.
but I would say Americans would find me quieter than I'm really am. And I'll even put you in that because I am mostly, when I hang out with Americans, in a sense, I'm in a mindset of like, I'm trying to emulate you, in a sense.
Hmm.
So I'm really paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah, or
When I'm
like you
with
want to
Ivorian,
fit, right? You want
yeah,
to you want to fit in with the people around you.
yes. So there is this effort, and like I kind of think before I talk more when I'm speaking English, and like this type when I hang out with Americans, and I observe more.
Mm.
because I'm trying to emulate.
Mm.
And there are obviously sides of me that you only see when you see me with Ivorians. Because when I'm with them, I'm not trying to emulate anything. I'm already that.
Yeah.
And there
I
are definitely sides of me that I have not expressed in the US and that would only express themselves if I actually was hanging out with another Ivorian.
If you asked me what I thought I noticed that was different about you, and as compared to like the average American or something like that, I would not have said you're quieter. But maybe that's because you know me really well and we just don't
I'm
have
very
time to
comfortable
you
beside
know.
you.
Or like I wouldn't say that you like observe me a lot or like emulate that much. Like
Maybe when I first met you.
usually whenever you hang out with me and we hang out with each other, it's like we just ping pong back and forth like this until
No, but
until
this is
we've
one
ran
thing
out of
about
time or
you, though.
something.
There is something surprising about our friendship.
Hmm.
I did not expect that someone that grew up from an ocean away from me, that I could get along that easily with you.
Mm.
Like, we had a lot
Yeah.
of, I don't know, like, we just vibed together despite
Yeah.
growing up from two different places. And that
Yeah.
is something that I did not prepare for. Like, it's not something I made effort for it. It was
Yeah, like
almost effortless.
getting along with you was never difficult for me, you know.
Yes.
Or like it was never a struggle to communicate particularly. Actually, even your accent, like there are some people where it's like, okay, if I heard their accent, I would have to think really hard about what exactly they're saying. Your accent doesn't bother me at all, and I always I don't know. I don't think I really have any issues deciphering what you're saying at any given time. I don't think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, your accent is kind of thick, but I don't struggle with it. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
that's because it is like uh, somewhat rooted in French, um, which is sort of like English or has a similar.
I have no idea. I'm just,
Dude, I don't
but
know.
like again,
I don't
like
know how it is. It's
what
just
happened with our
you know.
friendship has not happened most of the time with the people.
Okay,
There was an effort I had to make to understand
huh?
again, kind of vibe with them, and like it's more the more time I spend here, the less time I take to actually vibe. So like now I can just meet an American and like in a matter of like days, we can
Mhm.
just hang out. But
Yeah.
before I would make a lot of effort and obviously observe more and obviously be, I guess, quieter. I'm actually way louder than you think I
Yeah, see, that scares me because I already think you're kind of loud.
I am way loud. But it's not even me. It's like the culture. We shout at each other.
Yeah,
We don't talk to each other. We shout at each other. And we debate about.
yeah.
And
Dude, I need my
it-
quiet time, you know. I need my quiet spaces. Maybe that's why we got along because when you were in your observation kind of silence period, I was just being myself.
yeah.
We were
But
both
like
kind of
no,
quiet.
I'm actually I can be I can be quiet. For an Ivorian, I can be very quiet. I like to be in my place somewhere just thinking.
Yeah.
That's something that's just me. But like if I were to again speak of the culture, Americans usually don't see the Ivorian in me
Mhm.
because I'm trying to emulate them.
Yeah. I think that's
Uh,
kind of a shame, though.
I'm the
I would like to
minority.
see more of the Ivorian come out, you know.
See, that's the thing, right? Like,
Or like I see I wonder this is something I really wonder is if I went with you to the Ivory Coast or just like to visit your family wherever they're at.
you will find it so
I
different.
wonder if I would notice a dramatic change in your behavior from what I expect. Um That
I
would be
wouldn't be a
interesting.
different
And I wonder if
Kadmiel.
there would be a change in my behavior being there, and being immersed in it. Like, would I try to emulate what's around me?
Are you down
How would that
to
affect
kissing
me?
people on the cheek instead of greeting them with your hand?
Pardon?
Are you down to kissing people on the cheek instead of greeting them with your hands? That's the beginning.
Yeah, right off the bat, I'm like, no. But then I stop for a second. I'm like, well, I have to like break down again, like the sort of
Yeah,
norm that I'm accustomed to.
and that's why I'm like, thank God I didn't do it when I came here. I would have been a rapist.
Oh man, you would have been slapped.
Yes, that's
Amazing.
what I meant by emulating. Like I had to look. Okay, that's how we greet each other. We
Yeah,
don't have, we don't hug like we do. Like we greet each other. We hug each other. We kiss each other. That's it's very close up
yeah. Huh?
culturally. But if
Yeah.
you were to go to Ivory Coast and had no choice to come back to the US, you would just get used to it.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I don't think that's getting all like physically touchy with people. That ain't me. All right. Like, sorry. I don't.
If
I think that's something where people would be like, yeah, this guy's a foreigner, and I don't know if
like
that would. I don't know if I'd ever be able to fully get past that. I
I
think
think
I
you
could
have
get
to
past it a
dissociate.
little bit. Like it's like okay, I can work with the customs a little bit, but I wouldn't enjoy it, right?
Oh yes, yes. But like again, there are things in the US I don't enjoy that
Yeah.
I can't like go along with. Like it might even be seen as rude and impolite if you actually don't hug someone.
No dear. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is so like what most people do. Like you come, it's like you again. I come here and I see people say good morning. I'm not gonna say hi in French now.
Yeah.
It's like that you come in a room and everybody is doing it. That you have, if you are the only one doing it with your accent and the look, it's
Yeah.
gonna be more noticeable somehow. Like that, it's gonna be spot on.
Yeah. You know what?
And
If I ever get to meet your family, I'm totally using you as a meat shield. Just
my
save
mom will
me.
hug you immediately. My
Yeah.
dad will hug you. I
No,
think
no, no. Run.
my
Hide.
my sister now she's living in Europe. She might, if you give her your hand, she will greet you normally.
Okay.
My brother too, but my parent will just hug you
Oh, well.
immediately. So get
Hmm.
prepared for that.
Okay.
That's how they will say hi.
See,
They'll
I'll
come.
need you to give me a whole briefing.
They'll come, and every single of my friends, they're just gonna hug everybody, and not even like little. Like we're gonna take you like, what's
Yeah,
up?
bear hug style. Yeah.
Yes, you're gonna feel welcome. Like you're gonna feel a lot of love. But maybe you did not anticipate that. But again, that's me with over Ivorian. We like I when I look at Texas, I compare. I know about French culture, I know about Ivorian culture, and I know about Texan culture.
Mhm.
Like I would say, like you know how everybody has like a barrier, like around them. Like when you come
Yeah,
towards
like
them,
a personal space barrier.
yes, yes. When you come, like you violate that barrier, they all of a sudden their senses agitate themselves. Mine is way lower, and so is the Ivorian in general. So you will see us talking with each other, and like we have no problem with like talking and putting my hand on your shoulder and while talking to you. Like it's touchy. It's
Yeah,
just like that. And that's
yeah.
how you will see me. Like
Which
I don't do
in
that
a
in
way, I get that because it's like, okay, it's easier to kind of read people. Like it's another way you can read people on top of just speaking to them.
yeah,
Um, like it's body language.
it is. There is a lot of body language. And I feel like if I am with two other Ivorian, people will immediately see that because I don't do that with American, obviously. I
Yeah.
don't talk to people and like put my hand on their shoulder. They're gonna think it's threatening, and I understand that. Like I'm not here to change
Yeah.
American culture.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't like again, there's nothing wrong I think either way. It's just,
Yeah,
custom.
yeah. And I was thinking about like if I were to be, because my dad come again with like, I mean, my parents are really talking about like, where's your girlfriend? So what kind of girl do you want?
Yeah.
We are in this discussion right now, and he recently asked me like, are you like, do you have a he framed it like, do you have a preference of race? But that he
Oh.
really meant that, would it bother you if she's not Ivorian and she doesn't know all of
Oh,
this?
okay.
And I was kind of talking to him. I was like, I'm down to be with an American, but there is one condition that must be fulfilled,
Mm.
which is like the same way I came in America. And I told you like how Ivorian come here and go hang out with other Ivorian.
Yeah.
They're not really, and like same way American go to another country, they hang out with other American. That's
Mhm.
what most people do. They hang out with the kind, if I might say, like
Yeah.
that.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, I came here and I was and like I told my parents I'm not going to Spain. Why? Because I'm genuinely not curious about that culture.
Yeah.
But I was genuinely curious about American culture.
Yeah, and you want that in reverse, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like she just has to have that genuine interest of what is outside of, not Ivory Coast, because it's not obvious to know Ivory Coast. It's not a well-known.
Yeah.
Like I don't expect her to be like, oh my god, I always dreamed to go to Ivory Coast. Like
Yeah,
I'll be like,
finally, my chance.
I'll be like, wow, where did you hear about that? I'll be,
Yeah, well, okay, if you do run into that person, yeah, keep your
I'll
eyes
be.
open. That's
Usually,
unusual.
people that know Ivory Coast have something in their lives that a typical American doesn't know Ivory Coast.
Yeah. Or like,
Every
what incentive do they have to actually
yes,
know what's going on over
it's
there? You know?
yes, it's unless the only people I know about that know about Ivory Coast are usually Hispanic people, and they like soccer usually, and Ivory Coast soccer team is good.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I might hang out with people and be like, I'm from Ivory Coast, and they're like, oh yeah, your soccer team is really good, and I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah, which again, that's why you're friends with me because I don't know anything about soccer.
yeah.
So, you got a clean
so
slate to represent your culture.
so the standard is really like someone that's genuinely curious about another culture
Yeah.
outside, because like obviously if you get to know me to that level of intimacy, spot on, you're gonna be like, he's an Ivorian.
Yeah.
Like as much as he can get along with American, it's undeniable that he was raised in another culture,
Yeah. And
and
you
you
can
have
never fully leave where you first came from, like I think functionally. Or at least it's very hard to
I've,
do if you spent the formative years of your life in
yes,
that
that's what I
place.
mean. Like
Right.
I spent the first 18 years of my life there. You
Yeah.
cannot get out.
Yeah, or like your foundation is built,
Yes,
and maybe you can build an American looking house on top of that foundation, but at the bottom, the foundation is Ivorian, you know?
yeah, a very convincing American house, but the foundation is really Ivorian.
Yeah,
And again, like it's something you have. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a challenge or like it's difficult or like it's something, but it's only difficult if you, and like again, why I wasn't curious about American culture because I'm like American culture is better than my culture or my culture is
yeah,
better than their culture,
mhm.
right? But
Yes,
I in order to let culture influence me, I had to come to a place where I'm like, I came here and kind of humility. Like I would accept to be the dumb one.
Yeah,
I would accept
yeah.
to be
Which
the
that's
one
a
like
very brave thing to do. Sidebar, because it's willing to reach out and just soak something in without being able to have an opportunities to return it. You know, like that's a
yeah.
very it's almost like a generous thing to do.
I've been in so many rooms with everybody literally where like everybody will be talking or like it's like this person and I'm like who is it and everybody will look at me in the room like you don't know that person and I'm like no never heard about them like they did that series and I'm like never heard about it and
Well,
we have to stop the conversation to explain to me all that background.
you don't have to worry because that happens to me too. Oh
Like
gosh.
I have to be the one to raise my hand and be like who is Charlie Brown like
Yeah. Okay, well, Charlie Brown, all right, all right, but
uh, like you
you
don't know
know,
Charlie Brown. I'm like never heard of him. They're like oh
yeah,
my god, don't know Snoopy.
yeah,
And then we'll be like you don't know Scooby Doo, and I'm like oh no I know him, but I only know him in French.
yeah. I only vaguely my interactions with Scooby Doo are really slim. I haven't had a lot of those, you
Me
know.
too. It wasn't the most popular series. I know my one of my cousin was really into it, and we spent a lot of time together. And that's how I got to know Scooby Doo, but it wasn't my favorite one.
Mm. I am
But
very familiar with Charlie Brown and all that stuff.
he is not famous at all.
Yeah,
He's
I
only
was raised
famous.
on old school media.
I was my old school media is not old school because I would also say I was raised on old school media, but French
Yeah, but it's
version.
completely different because it's French,
Yes,
right? The French
we had
cultural media.
yes, it is crazy because like in America there is only American culture. I
Yeah,
don't think there is. I mean, there are subcultures like Hispanic, Black culture. There is such a thing as that.
yes. The American culture is very insular. I'll say that.
Yes,
Like,
but like in Ivory Coast, for example, we have Ivorian culture, and it's layered on top French culture, like French speaking culture.
yeah,
And then you have world culture, which is when America comes along now.
yeah,
So we have stars in Ivory Coast, we have stars in the French speaking world, and you have worldwide star.
yeah,
So the only American you will know as someone that's not from America is like the biggest one, like Beyonce, Jay-Z, Rihanna, like the biggest name
yeah.
everyone will hear about. And all the local names, I was this is my latest Kadmiel flop. I was in the room and we were playing a game where like you know that game where like you given a word and you're trying to make someone guess the word by saying other words.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm given a card and it's indie music.
Ooh,
I have
that's hard.
never heard indie music. I don't know what that is. I thought and as guess what I said? I'm like India. I'm like that's gonna be India.
That's great. I love it.
I
Oh my
started saying
god.
like okay, it's an Asian country, and they are like what? And they didn't guess it until like they show indie music, and because they know again that I probably don't know the word, and that because I don't know the word, I will understand it literally.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my god, you thought it was like related to Indian, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
or like,
what do you
okay.
think would
Which
occur?
again, that's rational. It
Yes,
makes sense. I can't fault you for that.
and just like I was just like, I don't know what indie music is, and they all know in this room what that is.
Yeah. You know what? You you're kind of you have the cultural issue where it's like, okay, I you're immersed in a foreign culture, so you've got to catch up with
Natives.
local terms, like local terminology and local slang and local phrases and things like that. like the in-depth nuances of the language. But on top of that, you're also kind of young going into adulthood. So because I've noticed this with myself, when you're going into adulthood, you have to accept the fact that there are ways of doing things in the adult world that you just do not know. And they're like really arbitrary rules and guidelines. And you just kind of have to look like an idiot and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. What is this?
Yeah,
In order to figure it out. So you've got like two layers of
yeah.
I just have to kind of figure it out and look like an idiot and ask stupid questions going on at the same
I'm
time,
still stupid
right?
things. Yeah. But again, like if this person is American, which for now it looks like most likely it will, you kind of need to be in that place because obviously we're visiting Ivory Coast.
Yeah,
Obviously, people there are not going to talk to you in English. So they
yeah,
literally need, like, you cannot learn French out of love for me because that's not easy. The same way it's not easy to speak English,
yes.
like when you never spoke it in your life.
Yeah,
So
you
you,
just have to immerse yourself in it, right?
yeah, but it makes it
Force
easy.
yourself.
It makes it easier when you have a genuine interest in it.
Yeah. You know what they
When
do
you're
in the
like,
French Foreign Legion?
what?
So the French Foreign Legion accepts members from all over the world. And basically what you can do is you can go to one of their offices in France, just show up and say I want to join, and they'll say okay and put you through the boot camp. And if you survive the boot camp, they'll put you into like advanced boot camp and then you'll become a legionnaire for like a couple of years of your life, minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what they do there is if you don't know French, that's okay. If you don't know anything about France, that's okay. What they'll do is you'll walk in and they'll just start speaking French to you, even though you don't know it. And eventually, over the course of a couple months of just bumbling around and like really struggling, you will learn French out of necessity, and
Yes.
like you're, it's part of their, it's part of how they generate camaraderie in the units as well, because all the people who are from all these different cultures and don't know what's going on, and like, the drill sergeant is yelling at them in French and they're like, what is he saying? I don't know. They're all kind of slowly teaching each other French, because one
Yeah,
person figures it out and then they tell everyone else and it's like, oh, okay,
it is
so
the best way to learn a language,
yeah.
especially when you become an adult. When you're a child, you're still like malleable, but when you're an adult, there is just no way. You need to be thrown into that. And I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
surprised. My mom now she speaks Spanish, and
Oh yeah,
that's
because she's been in Spain for a while. Yeah.
yeah for 3 years. But like she moved to Spain in the 40s, like
Yeah.
so. But it's because like you are again in this position where you cannot really go back. You don't have any Ivorian around you, so you just have to speak it, and
Yes.
people will speak it to you, and
Yeah.
eventually, by just this weird situation, you start to pick up word.
Yeah.
That's the only way. And like again,
Or
like
like I think what it is it's forcing your brain to recognize the importance of making the connections with the
yes,
meanings of the words, right? Because if there's no actual stakes to anything, like yeah, I can get along just fine without speaking English, If there's nothing at stake, your brain is going to be like, "All right, don't need
yeah.
to know that then." But
There
if
is one
every
thing that
single word is crucial to your survival, then your brain is going to start paying attention.
yes, I would say that, and maybe that's because I've been in big cities in the US,
Hmm.
but the US. the people here have been very accepting of like me speaking another language and just helping me around,
Yeah.
which I don't necessarily think Ivorian will reciprocate it as much
Yeah.
because
Which is
first of
odd
all,
to me considering how
no, it's not odd when you think how international the US is, really.
uh
It's a bundle of many culture.
yeah.
So there is this notion that you have to interact with other culture over. That's why there are issues here, for example, like with getting along, like racial issue or like social
Uh
economic issues, like stuff like that.
yeah.
It's because it's a country that's mostly made out of people coming
Yeah.
converging from every places in the world. And they came with again their way of doing things, so that clashes,
Mhm.
and it needs to reconciliate in this thing called American culture.
Yeah.
But when you go to Ivory Coast, it's been there for what, thousands of years.
Huh.
Like
Yeah.
it's like the same thing has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
But and I speak from experience because in high school we had one foreigner that came in my high school,
Hmm.
and he spoke French, but a different kind of French.
Oh, okay. Do you know where he was from or just that he spoke
I
French?
don't know. He looked
Hmm.
Middle Eastern, so
Oh, okay.
maybe from a country south of Africa, like on the
Yeah.
southern part, like, but not Morocco, not the obvious. But like
Yeah.
he had no clue about the culture, and then he walks into us, and
Mhm.
he made so many like he was trying to fit in.
Oh.
And it started with us like laughing about it, but he at some point he was so wanting to be with us that he earned our respect that we started rooting for him. But it was so funny to look at him like understanding us sometime,
Yeah.
because Ivorian culture is, how would I say that? I would say that Ivory Coast on Twitter, people think we are the meanest people
Yeah.
who exist.
Okay, okay. And
Our choices.
I know right away an American would respond very badly to that
Oh
because
my
again,
god, they will
it's the
cancel
whole
me.
ego thing,
If I
where
were to express my full Ivorianness, they will cancel me so much.
yeah,
Because, and it's not even coming from a bad place. It's just that. Listen, this is our history. No, this is history. This is history, and I think maybe I told you that before. That tribes, when they will make peace treaties, would include jokes that they could make with each other from that point on, and they included jokes about slavery, Nicks.
oh
They
my
included
god.
jokes about like very bad stuff. That's where I grew up. Where
Yeah.
like and like oh my god, it's gonna sound so bad, and like American are gonna hear that. We had another one in my high school. He
Mhm.
was This man is absolutely white.
Wait, another exchange student or
He
like
was
foreign
not
student?
exchange student. He was born in Ivory
Okay,
Coast,
got it.
but he's white.
Okay.
This man could call me the N-word anytime he wanted. That would not have bothered me
Yeah.
because he's so undeniably Ivorian
Yes. Like he just
that
gets it, you
yes,
know.
that you cannot take it away from him. And that's the thing. Like at some point where this it tips over, when like you learn enough that you at this stage where we are like he's starting to be undeniably one of us, we accept you immediately. And
Yeah.
it's almost as if you get all the perks.
Yeah.
And like by by the end of the year, he was like one of us. He was, and like we just loved him. He still has the accent. Sometimes he would just mess up some word. Sometimes we would say some word that we do say to each other, not the N word, but some other word that if I were to tell to somebody, they will beat me up. But
Yeah.
we have some ways of saying things, and it's like with our accent. Like, of course, you can say those words, but we have an intonation, a way to say those words that sound like this is a joke. This is like, I'm saying it as like the cultural thing and not as
Yeah,
an insult. It literally depends on your intonation, which is kind
yeah,
of crazy. Which is one way of speaking
yeah.
French,
It's
which,
very nuanced, right?
yes, it's almost like
Like if you
Chinese. Like,
weren't familiar with the inflection of the voice or something like that, you would think you're getting insulted. You know,
yes.
it's
And
kind of like
sometimes you meet,
sarcasm, right?
yes,
Where it's like,
yes, like
okay,
sarcasm. We
you
do
know,
a lot of
like
sarcasm.
if you have no concept of sarcasm, everything sounds like an insult, and it sounds really rude. Uh,
Yes.
but in reality, or
Like
that,
all these
or
things we say.
you
What?
take it as like sarcasm can be used where it's like, okay, someone has a problem with something, and but they don't want to say it outright that they have a problem, and so they use sarcasm to kind of soften that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
but if you're taking it literally, you might think there's no problem at all, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. And literally, we make a lot of jokes about like each other, but with that intonation, and
yeah,
it helps to ease up. Like, it's literally how sometimes we network. And like I was saying that in Ivory Coast, every year at the end of the year, we have this festival, end of year festival,
yes,
broadcasted on TV, where we bring the best comedian
yeah.
and they laugh about whatever is happening right now, whatever the news is, no matter how controversial it is.
Hmm.
And I live in a country where if you laugh about the government, they might kill you. So these comedians come and they trash the government and literally flow the country, flow
Oh
away to
my
France or
god,
another country. Come on stage, you have the president is a bitch, drop the mic and run away.
that is so ridiculous.
And we'll laugh about it. But again, it comes with that intonation. And sometimes you mess up that intonation and it will sound like an insult. But we know that he's like, he's trying and we'll just laugh at it.
Yeah,
But that's the thing, like, if you're trying, we would accept you.
that's such an odd career path too. Sidebar, or like an odd lifestyle to lead, where it's like, yes, I'm a comedian, but a comedian that is in danger,
Yes.
or like that sounds like a very interesting lifestyle to lead. Just saying, like
And
a
I
comedian
feel
that
like it,
critiques a government and is could be killed for it, but
oh,
continues to do it
literally, people
anyway.
are being sent. Guys, when I say could be killed, I'm not saying that it's a
Yeah.
possibility. I'm saying they send people to kill you and you have to run for your life now.
Oh, okay. So it's just an established fact.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
We
Love
have
that.
had some of the best comedians that, I mean, one of the best, he lived in France. And when we had the Civil War, that was a very traumatic event. Kind of on 9/11 in a sense.
Yeah.
Like the country was really hurt as a whole because of that. But our way of bonding, again, like when 9/11 happened, American bonded around the flag, being an American, the pride of being an American. Us, our way of bonding was like, we are still gonna have that festival.
Yeah.
And this civil war happened because, again, like, politician, greedy people allowed it to happen to us.
Mhm.
So obviously the jokes were like, who's gonna take the mic and call that out?
Yeah. Yeah.
And bro, to this day, this is still the best one we had because the comedian lashed out.
Yeah.
And everybody was clapping at them. Like, the crowd knows that obviously we are under some type of tyranny and we cannot stop people from coming to kill you. But they were being cheered as they were saying that, and
Yeah.
it was so hilarious and funny.
That is such an interesting like national pressure release valve to have.
Yeah,
Like the annual comedy show,
yeah,
which is like it what's weird about it is it's so extremely funny, but also so extremely serious. And
Yes,
like again, make this joke at penalty of death,
penalty of
and
death.
people will make it, and then try
Yeah,
to get away. Like that is such a I get it. It's a very human thing, but it's also really weird.
yeah. I mean,
Like
it's this or whether we take we just riot.
yeah,
So
and I'm not saying it's like, oh, that's so weird from an American perspective. I'm just
yeah,
saying as a human being who understands how that like I think I have a pretty good idea of why people would want to do that. Again, it's a pressure release valve, but it is weird that human beings are like that and do things like that.
yeah.
And
Every
I want to
human
speak
wants to do
on this less from like a outside looking in way and more from an inside looking in way.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that makes like that again. That's why again, like in Ivory Coast, kind of humor is very protected. And
Yeah.
this is one of the things, for example, that makes me sleep in front of Ivorian, which is like when I came here, I understood that some humor can hurt people
Yeah.
and that not everything should be joked about.
There's a lot of softies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
or
like sometimes you're
people
right.
who get
Like I do look at things in my culture and I'm like, we should not laugh about it. We should take this thing seriously. Because
yeah,
we do not take a lot of things seriously.
yeah.
Everything can literally turn to a joke. Even the most serious topic can turn to a joke, which now I look at it and I'm like, it's not at our best interest.
I think the reason why that kind of humor doesn't fly here is deeply tied to that very American egoism I was talking about earlier, where it's like everyone has a very serious way of looking at themselves here. Like
Yeah,
everyone here wants to be taken seriously. Everyone here is very individualistic, which ties in with that whole wanting to be taken seriously part. And that generates kind of a pride in oneself and a certain uh, expectation of respect.
yes.
even
No,
when
I
they
agree
haven't
with that.
even when they haven't done anything to earn anybody's respect, they expect it all the same, you know?
I agree with that.
And
Like,
what
yeah,
that kind of generates is a very insecure population, where it's like
yeah,
even if you're joking at me, I take it 100% seriously and I'm very insecure about it, you know?
yeah.
And that's kind of how it works here, I think.
That's it. That's one thing. And again, I'm not here to change American culture, but there is definitely an American pride, which
Yeah.
is a good thing until it becomes just pride.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that it is a strength, but it can also become a serious weakness. And
Yeah,
I think it often does become a serious weakness,
yeah. When like
especially nowadays.
I was always joking why I wouldn't die for a country is because I was raised in a country 4 times smaller than Texas.
Yeah,
If another country, if US or China threatens us, we're just gonna say we're sorry, guys. Like
yeah,
we're not gonna we're not gonna be at the UN knocking on, banging our hand on
yeah.
the table
Well,
and be like, listen to us.
here's something. What if it's like a an unconditional surrender kind of thing? Like, do you at all feel like there's any sort of threat of cultural annihilation? And
Yes, and
if you felt like there was a threat of cultural annihilation, would you fight?
I it's
But
I don't
I
think
also
it's
suppose that requires a definition of cultural annihilation.
yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, let's say the same thing that was happening to Ukraine happened to us, right?
Oh, yeah, so like being absorbed basically by a
Yeah,
larger country. Yeah.
there is. I think the only way that we've been able, I wouldn't say fight, but like Ivorian culture has seriously, I mean, year after year, it's literally influencing French speaking world in general. And I feel like the way for us, we don't have a big army. We
Mhm.
don't have the means to defend the guns or like the firepower to be like, let's defend ourselves, let's protect this
Yeah.
patch of land.
Yeah, that's a good
And to
point.
me, the only rational way to defend that culture would be to transmit it.
Yeah.
Like the same way, like for example, that we might be under the power of some bad government, but we still preserve that humor, that being mean to the government
Yeah.
attitude. It's like still being transmitted.
It's kind of like a subculture, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you have the overt culture of what the government is saying and the posture they're taking, but then you have the subculture of the citizenry who is critiquing the government and the posture it's taking, you know?
yes. And like it always goes like as long as this is transmitted, these people that are in power are going to die. And who is gonna be left?
Yeah, the
Us.
citizenry, right?
Yes.
And
And
their
the people
distinct
that
culture
to
that
whom it
exists in
was
spite of the
transmitted.
governmental body.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's gonna be left the people to whom it was transmitted. And when they take power, they're gonna, this culture is gonna still exist. And if they don't follow the path that was they were supposed to follow, the culture is still gonna be transmitted. Next generation. Be like, I was raised that I was always saying like if I was an American I wouldn't vote because we just never trust politicians.
Yeah.
That's something we commonly
As
share
an
as a culture.
American, I
Yes.
vote because I believe some politicians do more damage than others. So,
I wouldn't even bother. I feel like I do more good for humanity by giving to charity than voting. But I'm wrong, and I know
yeah.
that. And I was probably hurt by politicians letting a civil war happen just for
Yeah.
power, and that really made me mad.
Well, another thing is just like I don't think I fully appreciate the differences between uh how because you still kind of view the Ivory Coast as your home country, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
where I came from.
I
Yeah.
don't think I fully appreciate the ways that our view of a home country affects our operating procedures and how we interact with that country, right? Like the whole would you die for your country question, is deeply affected by, well, what country are you coming from? Or like, what country are we talking about? You
Yeah.
know, or what exactly is at stake? You know, and I think that definitely for the United States versus the Ivory Coast, there are very, very different considerations that need to be made about that
Mhm.
question, you know? So,
Yeah.
but that's just a case in point. Like, it goes even deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
But
Like,
I think it's really nice talking to you because I think if I wasn't talking to you, I wouldn't even think about that. Like, okay, if I grew up in the Ivory Coast, maybe I wouldn't think of it in the way of like, oh, I don't feel like I need to vote, or like,
yeah,
oh, I don't feel like I need to die for a country or anything like that, right?
yeah. Which again, like I understand the American pride, and I guess one of the US is again like it's so easy to be. It's difficult to be the top dog, right? We
Yeah,
are not the top dogs.
yeah,
Like to have a target on your back, and like again, defending the US means obviously war in a
yeah.
sense.
Well, I think there's also a cultural history, right? Like, who are your parents? What do they think about these things, and how's that influenced you as their child, right? Because, like, my dad, he was living his teen years kind of at the height of the Cold War. And that was very much a question for them of cultural annihilation at the very least,
Yeah,
Like, this idea of an all out nuclear war kicking off between the United States and the Soviet Union was incredibly real, and
yeah,
very, very grave, So, and it was a matter of ideology and culture, Um, so that has, to a certain extent, uh, that informs a lot of people's views about the world even now. Like, I think the United States still hasn't bounced back from the Cold War mentality. I think that's why we antagonize Russia so much still, even
yeah,
though they're not nearly as threatening as they used to be. Um, and they're not necessarily as involved with the US as they used to be. Um, People still are very antagonistic towards them, and I think it is kind of a holdover, or not, I wouldn't say holdover, but more like the slow decline of this ingrained cultural fear of
yeah,
Russia representing cultural annihilation to us, you know.
yeah.
And like you said, like, if you do have a lot of power as a nation, people are looking to you all the time.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's very easy to be paranoid.
I
Like,
agree.
I
But
think the United
that's one
States
thing. Like
suffers from isolation and paranoia, like,
we,
very
and that's
much.
like it's the U.S., China, Russia are such big and have so much power that
Yeah,
cultural like defending the US means dying for it, like going to a war and
yeah.
killing an enemy.
Or, like, a lot of people are willing to do that here.
Yes. It's not even willing. It's like you don't like if the US was threatened, like literally threatened,
Mhm.
that means that there is a war, that something real bad is happening that requires people to take the arm and go fight.
Yeah,
When like for Ivory Coast, we had like whenever the terrorism happened, we had
yeah.
one terrorist attack, and
Mhm.
it was a shock for the whole nation
Yeah.
because there is like no ground, like
Like, what kind of statement are you trying to make by
yes,
performing a terrorist attack
it
here?
made no sense, and I'm talking about like it can happen anytime. They could
Yeah,
attack us anytime if they wanted to, but they don't. Because I mean we are one of the most developed nation in Africa. Like Ivory
yeah,
Coast, like where I grew up, like it's a city. It's a whole city. And we have internet, we have everything
yeah. It's
like
well
that a city
developed.
has. Like we are economically powerful. But taking over Ivory Coast would not mean much.
Hmm.
Like their enemies are friends, their enemies are the US. Terrorists want them. So
Yeah,
even they if they want to be on the news, even for us, they did an attack and we were just like, I mean, we were so like shocked by it. And that's us even like when there is a gun, a mass shooting, we're just like, where did they get the gun?
yeah.
Like, what? People have guns. Like, the worst you can get is stabbed.
You know, Speaking as a paranoid American who thinks a lot about how the United States could possibly unravel, um, I think if anything is going to kill the U.S., it's going to be the U.S. itself. Like,
I believe that.
I think the people's rabid individualism and the kind of pride that that spurs, coupled with our paranoia, uh, is going to eat us alive someday.
Yeah.
I
You
don't know
know,
when, but someday it's going to eat us alive, and
but
it's but even then, it's not like when the U.S. as we know it ceases to be. It's not like that's the end and everyone is dead. You know, like things will still go on. People will still be alive. Things will change, but it's not like the end of everything. You know, or like ideas can still be recovered after they
yes,
are thought up. You know, like
yeah,
it's very hard to kill an idea. So I don't necessarily look at the idea of a dramatic shift in the U.S. and its personality or its government as the end of the U.S. as a good story, right? Like a good nation.
mm-hmm.
But I can see it as a setback in this kind of the story of history, if you will. Uh, or like I do foresee maybe setbacks in the nation, but I don't necessarily foresee annihilation anymore. Does that make
No,
sense?
there is not an annihilation of the U.S.
Yeah.
I
Like
feel like if
because that's
tomorrow for
simply not
some,
possible, you know?
yeah,
It's not possible with any country.
yeah,
Perfect annihilation doesn't exist.
the
Uh,
cultural influence of the U.S. is something that will live on, and like even in our history, when we learn about Ivory Coast history, the U.S. comes to play because it's whenever slavery was abolished here than it was abolished everywhere else.
mhm.
And it's whenever like segregation stopped here that in our history book that other colonies started to be like, hey, that happened in the US, so why are we still living like that?
Yeah.
And they started fighting. So the cultural influence is undeniable. Like this again, like seeking for freedom and things like that. That even if the US was to disappear tomorrow, this impact is still well alive.
Yeah.
Be- because like if anything, the US proved that it's possible to be the greatest nation and try to be the freest nation at the same time.
Yeah. I will say this though, at least within my lifetime, if something like that does occur where a potential setback, quote unquote, is imminent, um, you know, I still have that whole like if I can do anything, like if I can risk my life at all to stop that from happening, I would, you know, because at the end of the day, uh, for me, it's more about if I have children, what is the best quality of life I can assure for them? Or if people I know have children, what is the best quality of life I can assure for those people by my estimation? And if my estimation says that requires that I do something dangerous, then I would do that, you know.
Yeah.
But it's all very
No.
conditional, right?
And like to it no, but to a degree, I not only do I understand you, maybe I wouldn't go to that extent, but it's the same
Yeah,
thing with us being like, not necessarily if you disagree, show it
yeah,
type of mentality. That would never leave me. Like if for some reason the government was to increase the censorship in my country, we will become louder.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We will just become louder.
And
And the worst can happen in that situation
yeah,
where like we might be one of the most docile like people outside Ivorian compare like because like right north of Ivory Coast there was a Burkina Faso, right?
Mhm.
And their president abused power so much that the whole country revolted about him,
Yeah,
against him. Not the whole nation. It wasn't heard of. That sent a vague of fear in all these dictators, and like we were like, wait, one day they could just rise up
yeah,
and just try to kill me.
yeah. Or at a
I,
certain
I,
point, there's like a last straw moment where
yeah,
civilization enters do or die mode.
yes. And I think even the power at play allow this humor because they know that if they block that, that's what comes next.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And
Like
people might do that, but
I think this is something I kind of wanted to tie everything together with, which is I think there's kind of a common human spirit, and it exists beyond this idea of nationalities or like cultures. Um, but uh, it manifests differently depending on the circumstances of the culture or the nationality, right? Like,
hmm
again, I think that at the end of the day, you and I, our main goal is no matter what to provide a better standard of living for the people that come after us, right?
yes,
Or like that is important to us. It's just from a US perspective, that means certain things. And from an Ivorian perspective, that means certain things. You know, the
yeah,
circumstances are a little different, but the fundamental human urge to provide a better standard of living for your offspring exists, you know?
yeah,
And I think there are a lot of things like that beyond just the desire to provide a better world for the people that come after you, you know? Like,
hmm
I think that for me, I would define that as faith, like my faith, or that ties in really, really deeply with this idea of faith to me
hmm
and religion, right? Um, but yeah, because I think that's one of the only things that can transcend time and also transcend the erosion of cultures and the erosion of nations, right? Like
yeah,
everyone would agree the Roman Empire is all but destroyed, you know, as like culturally it's not present and like physically it's hardly present, you know, it's not at all able to manifest,
yeah.
right?
It's dead.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very dead, you know? But the human spirit of the people who existed in the Roman Empire is still alive. It's just, again, it's dealing with different conditions, right?
hmm
So I think that's where I find a lot of my comfort, you know, um, in this idea of, oh no, what if we lose everything? You know, the American paranoia.
hmm
It's okay.
Wow, that must be something to sleep at night and be like, because you're not the first person I meet. I was literally listening to a podcast. I think it was a Joe Rogan, and he was like, "Yeah, I haven't slept last night because I was like, what would it take for this country to fall apart?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I was thinking about it all night, and I'm like, wow, what a weird dream."
Yeah. But see, to me, that is not at all surprising, you know, or like it keeps me up at night thinking about how this country
even
is going to fall
even
apart. So,
no matter Democrats, Republicans, they all like,
yeah,
wow, what would it take for this to all fall apart?
yeah. And see, what's so funny is the Republicans think the Democrats are what it's going to take to rip this country apart. And the Democrats think the Republicans are what it's going to take to rip the country apart. And what they're doing is ripping the country apart together.
Yes. And I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, wow, never would I think that, this culture that I'm fascinated with, which is the US, like, Someone kneeling, for example, during the national anthem could spark s- just ripple effect.
Someone's at the door. I
But
need to go answer it. I'll be right back.
okay, yeah. So while Nick is gone, this is our second ad break. I just would like to say that I don't know. I love Nick, but he's back. I'm kidding, guys. Anyway, he's putting his headphone right now. Look at him.
Sorry, that was
Yeah.
near disaster. I like tripped over a computer cable, and
My God.
it was
Can you
bad.
imagine you just don't come back, you fell on the floor and lost consciousness?
Yeah, well, uh, I was thinking, imagine if I tripped on the cord and it didn't unplug and it just pulled the entire laptop off the table.
And I'm just wow.
Right,
And
right.
podcast over. Wow.
Yeah, well, it's not my laptop; it's someone else's laptop. It
Uh,
so right now I'm sitting at a dining table, and I'm sitting in one chair. There's a chair over there, um, and at that chair at the dining table, there's another laptop that's plugged into the wall. And so when I got up to go and answer the door really fast because they were knocking for like 30 seconds. And okay, here's another thing. My sister Serena, she's incredibly impatient
oh,
um, when she's knocking at the door and stuff. And I knew the knocking would just get louder and louder and more intense.
it's,
I was like, I've got to answer this door. So
it's
I
like my brother actually when we call each other.
it was,
Like
it's bad.
he would have like connection issues and he will think we don't hear him when he's having connection issues. So he would
Oh
just start
no.
screaming it, what he's saying.
Yeah.
And whenever the connection like recovers, you just hear him scream blasting in your ears. Can you hear me? And you
Yeah, and
just
it's not helping anything. He doesn't have to scream, but he just does it. God.
I
I,
I put
okay.
him on blast.
For future reference, for anyone who ends up living with me later in life, if if you knock on the door like incessantly, like I'll hear you the first time and I'm on my way to go open the door. But if you're still knocking and you're being really annoying about it and like pounding the door, I want to strangle you so bad. Like that makes me so mad. Oh my gosh. Like
No, same for me. Like,
oh no.
I put him on blast. I put my brother on blast.
Yeah.
Now he understand. I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, if you say something and we don't hear you, do not scream.
Yeah.
Wait. Something
Yeah.
is wrong with your connection.
No,
Don't
I
scream.
would do that too. I would put him on blast as well.
It made me so mad at times because it's my headphone, like he's in my ears, obviously. And it's at
Yeah.
a certain level because when people talk normally, it sounds right. Then he's like, and I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
But that's my family. Like
Yeah.
when you if you do something people don't notice it, do it louder.
I couldn't live with it.
I can't. And listen, that's one thing about us that we grew up two different
Yeah.
places.
Yeah,
We
several 100,000 miles away from each other, and we still feel the same way about, you know,
patience people
like
don't chill.
how people knock on doors.
Yeah, that's kind of weird that it's an American thing to dream about. Like, how will this fall apart?
Yeah,
How
well,
can
I think that the reason why Americans are so paranoid like that is because I do think we have a good thing going on. Or we've had precedent for number one, a very economically powerful nation that provides
yeah,
great opportunities for its citizens and also allows them to voice themselves to a certain degree. Definitely better than a lot of other places. you know.
Definitely better.
And um, I think we have had a history of a fairly common culture that was constructed out of uh, basically a mixture of many cultures of the world. Like, if there's any precedent for a global, like a globalized culture, America is it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the only one
and
actually.
so I think people, what kind of started this whole paranoia in the American populace is this idea of feeling like we do have something truly unique going on, or at least like in the grand stage of history. Um, for as long as human beings have existed, this is really unusual,
Yeah,
right? Um,
yeah,
and I think there's this paranoia that if we drive this car into a wall, we won't get another one, or like that'll be it. You know,
yeah. That'll
there
be
won't
it.
ever be another America, or like
Yeah,
there can't possibly be anything that outdoes America. You know,
yeah.
which I think, yes, there's some truth to that, but I also think it discounts, or well, I think it's easy to lose sight of this higher thing, which is the human spirit, and um, call that what you will. But I would chalk a lot of that up to just like, well, okay. If I start to comment on the human spirit, I would start to get preachy and very faith oriented, and uh, my
Yeah.
my religious standings would become very evident. And I'm not sure we want to do that on this podcast necessarily, because
If you want to
we
talk to
might get canceled,
America,
you know.
which includes people that do not share the same belief as
Yeah,
you,
and you know, here's another thing. Pretty much every faith out there, every religion out there, the one of the main tenets of every religion is to spread it whenever you get the
yeah.
chance. But I feel like my evangelism is kind of conditional, right? Like
Oh,
I
explain.
I, I will evangelize to people if I think they're willing to hear me out. But I
Yeah,
think that people listening to this podcast aren't looking for evangelism, and they're not willing to hear me out. And so I think me digging too deeply into my, how my faith informs the world around me, I think digging too deep into that might not be what people come here for. But
I would say that. See, this is one thing I notice about people, especially trying to change their minds,
yeah,
is that you are never talking to the person you are seeing right now.
yeah,
There is a whole baggage, a whole history that I've followed
yes,
of that you are interacting with all of that. Over years you have been alive, you're interacting with all of that at once.
yeah,
And you should never expect to change it immediately if you think that what you are proposing, especially, is right for them. You should not force it or provoke it. Like, you should be like, you know, if you believe that they are going to change their mind about it, it's like the straw that breaks the camel back, right?
yeah,
Maybe you won't be that straw, but you can add, enough straw to the stack that it they don't get bothered by it.
yeah,
Maybe three straws. And go on with your life, and maybe someone else will pick up from there and add another straw.
yeah,
And I mean, I believe I'm a Christian, and I do believe it is the solution to a lot of issues that some people are having in their lives. But again, the way I would talk about it is, again, I would introduce myself first. I'll be like, you know me,
Yeah.
You know what I'm about, and you cannot look at me in VR and say that you don't like me. So
Yeah.
this is what I'm gonna tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think in order for people to actually want to hear it out, to a certain degree, they have to know that you care about them, you know?
Yes.
And I think if people are listening to a podcast, they don't know if we care about them at all, you know? So,
If you are 1 million
or-
people, I probably don't care about a lot of you, but
yeah.
I wish peace on all of you guys.
Yeah.
I care about very few people.
Yeah. All of the reason why I brought all this up is just to say a lot of what I believe about this idea of the human spirit or something that transcends culture and nation um, is informed by my faith. And
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I'll just leave it there. But
Yeah.
I'm not willing to unpack all the nuances of my faith unless I feel like I can really speak to the person, you know.
Well,
Like again, like I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with broadcasting what you believe about religion and faith and where human beings come from. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with broadcasting that to a huge audience, especially of people that you can't see or you don't know. But this podcast is not that place, right?
I don't care if you tell me right now we're gonna make $1 million out of spake talking about God. I
Yeah.
might
Okay.
change.
Here's another thing. Viewers, if you are not Christian, I'm sorry because both Kadmiel and I are Christian.
But if you will pay for that, listen.
Yeah, but we're also not trying to like we're not out to get you, and we don't hate you if you're not.
No, this is one thing again that about Ivory Coast, which is why I came here, is that I laugh about some of the things Christians do, and I disagree with some of
Oh
the things
yeah,
they do as well.
yeah.
Like I'm never gonna look at someone in their eyes and be like, "This is whatever we do is totally rational. It's
Well,
absolutely
okay. Well, we're human beings, right?
yes,
Like, or like to say, "Oh, I'm a Christian." That's not me saying, "Oh, I don't sin." You know,
yeah,
I don't make mistakes in the eyes of the Lord.
yeah."
Oh,
And
like,
it's not even like saying like, and I don't even feel dumb for saying I am one.
yeah,
But I don't feel like anyone that doesn't believe it is dumb as well. I
yeah,
just feel like we all looking for the same thing. We're all trying to
yeah.
be happy.
I feel like everyone just gets thrown into life and we don't know where we came from and we don't know where we're going and it's really
Even if you want to say you know it, you don't.
yeah, like everything about our circumstance is very frightening and confusing and nothing is very like where exactly we came from and where we're going is not obvious to anybody.
It's
And
absolutely not.
even trying to even other people are frightening and mysterious in a lot of ways where it's like I kind of in an abstract sense I think you Cadmiel share this fear that I have about not knowing where you came from and where you're going but I don't really know that for certain. It's just kind of like I assume that our experience is very similar because you seem to express similar sentiments and you are of my kind, like we're both human
Yeah,
beings, you know. So I've inferred that you kind of have the same problem as I do.
yeah,
But you know, that I think that's the main point is just like everyone's trying to figure out what the heck is going on, you know, and if there's anything more to this than just being scared, you know.
I agree.
Yeah. So
Me,
if you're not Christian or if you don't jive with all that, know that that's where I'm coming from if I do end up talking to you about these things.
and listen, if we're gonna have a lot of these podcasts, eventually Nick is gonna talk about it. So
I you know what? If you
You
don't,
just have to find the right way of saying it.
okay, Kadmiel, do you actually want to talk about that stuff on this podcast? Because we don't
Uh,
have to, and I can restrain myself from talking about that stuff. I was
we
assuming that
can
we're not
end the podcast
going
and keep talking,
to do
and but I we can end the podcast and keep talking.
that. Okay.
But I if I see myself podcasting for the next 5 years at least,
Mhm.
it's without restraint, honestly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like it's restraint. Like I'm not saying that what I think. I want to say what I think, but I also believe there is a right way to say what I think,
Yeah.
and
And
I could say it the wrong way.
I think, especially on something as important as religion and on
Yeah,
something that people are so sensitive about, you have to be very, very careful about
yeah. I
what
believe I can
you
say
say,
things the wrong way,
right?
and
Yeah.
I will apologize for that. But I will never apologize for saying what I think. I
Yeah.
just think there is a right way and a wrong way. And I will definitely apologize if I said it the wrong way, but
Yeah.
not if I think it. If I think it, deal with it.
Yeah.
There is
Okay. I like
7 billion people. But we can end the podcast and we can still talk about it if you want.
that. Okay. Yeah. In a second, just talking more about like I think the number one thing, like when we started this podcast, it was definitely just like we're not going to change how we talk to each other, really. You know,
Yeah,
we're like, we're going to talk about what we want to talk about, and we're going to be real people because I don't know.
it's
If,
more
if I have a
interesting.
podcast, I want to be myself. Okay.
Me
I,
too.
I can't not be myself. I'm not really like an actor.
Yeah,
So, and again, I like the idea that I don't have to try very hard to be a personality when I sit down and start recording. I just have to be me, and
oh yes, please
Cadmiel
be
can
you.
be Cadmiel, and I don't have to like figure out what kind of person he is today or like what
Yeah.
what
If you
kind of
listen
act
to all
he's
the
putting on.
episodes, you know I want money. You
Yeah,
know that.
yeah, and I also know he wants money.
I haven't lied about it.
Yeah, yeah. So
I will not be caged
you know.
anywhere.
Part of who we are is that we are the Christian boyos, or we're sold on that kind of idea, at least for now. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean we don't entertain different ideas and like look at them and critically
But I'll say,
try to
Spotify.
critically assess them. But like we are prone to failure. There are probably a lot of things that we think are right that aren't, but and we know that.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm definitely not right on everything.
We
That's
try to
impossible.
stay humble. It's what we say at the end of every single episode. Stay humble. So there's that. We're trying, and beyond that, I mean,
All I'm saying is, if Spotify you want to buy this podcast for $100 million, I will say whatever.
why would anyone want to buy this podcast?
They bought Joe Rogan for $100 million just to be himself.
Yeah.
I
Well, you're not Joe Rogan, and neither am I.
am not Joe Rogan.
You're very
Um,
untested.
yes, it's okay. Fine.
Yeah. I hope people like us. That would be cool.
That'll be cool. Like, if they don't, I don't regret doing that podcast.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But we'll regret not trying.
Oh, I would have regret. Like, it. I was burning to do that. I was burning to do that podcast. I
Yeah.
was looking for a pretext. Because you wanted to do it, like, was my pretext. It
Yeah.
was. Otherwise, I would have started it myself eventually, but because you were like, "I'll do episode," with you, I was like, "I'm gonna do it. I'll do it.
Well,
I'm
I'm
gonna
glad
do
that I addressed you at the right time to get this kicked off because Lord knows I definitely need your drive to actually get me on here to record things.
it." Yeah, it's okay. Like you, I'm not. I said I'm gonna do it for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to do the same. I
Okay.
want you to be yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's why I also wanted to do it with you because I know you are that value that doesn't really change.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try my best to do this for as long as I can. And honestly, it may not be saying much, but how long have we been doing this? Like in terms of days
30,
and
that would be the
months?
13th week in a row.
Shoot, man, 13 weeks. That's you divide that by three approximately. That gives you how many months it is, right?
It's three
Like,
months.
yeah, like
We're approaching 3 months of that.
if things keep going as they are, I'll
We'll kill each
probably
other
stick
at episode
around.
50.
Yeah, I am having just as much fun recording this now as I was the first episode. So
Me too. Yeah.
that's all I can say for
Sometimes
now.
I call him, I'm like, should we come with an agenda? Should we like
Yeah, we still don't have we still record on crappy mics and we come with no plan and we debate ground rules on the podcast,
we find
about the
solution to
podcast. Like,
even
oh, are we allowed to talk about this? Should we talk about this? Maybe we don't talk about this.
we're giving solutions to the world right
Like,
now. We just like this is how the world will get it together. And we are like two
like this podcast is just
our definition. We should
so
literally
wrong.
have a disclaimer. We are going to 90% of the
Like,
thing we're gonna talk about. We have no expertise in it.
yeah, or like if this podcast was a restaurant, we would be serving live animals. You know,
And if you come here in search of knowledge, of I don't know, guys. I don't
or
know what you get out of it, but if you come here and you will not take everything we say with a grain of salt, it's your fault. I
uh,
don't care.
like if this is the restaurant, we take the cow to your table and we stab it in front of you and then tell you eat up.
Can you imagine? I'm literally just imagining what you just said. You order a steak and they come with a cow and they just stab it and
Yeah,
we
like
just go back to the kitchen.
we don't cook it. We don't do prep. We just come out and we kill the cow in front of you and say, "All right,
Yeah,
have
this
fun."
is raw.
Yeah,
And that's the only way to do this type of thing for 5 years. You cannot
yeah,
do it for 5 years and edit every single piece of it
yeah.
and be like, ah,
Oh, dude, if you demanded that I come on this podcast with some kind of like manufactured personality,
no,
and like if you demanded that I come on here as like an actor, I wouldn't be able to do it.
no,
Or like
I
I
can't.
could maybe do that for one episode and then I'd be done.
Yeah,
That
no,
that ain't me.
and it's so much easier for me to because I have to edit that, and it's easier to edit when you have fun listening to yourself and your friend talking. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's actually
I'll tell you the number one thing I value about this podcast, and part of what keeps me recording it, is I just want to be able to someday, when I get really old and gray, and maybe when we're not able to meet each other anymore, um, it would be nice to be able to go back and just listen to it, and
yeah.
be like, oh, yeah, that's how it was, when I was 21.
This is so much
Things are
fun.
different, right?
It's actually good content, which is also like something like I genuinely believe that we're doing good content. Like I genuinely do believe that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it's easy to say that.
I know I'm biased
When
and
you're in your
everything.
own head, yeah, we're both incredibly biased. I try not to comment on it, but I enjoy our content. So
Doing great.
there's
But
that.
we'll stay humble, guys. So stay humble
Yes,
yourselves.
try to stay humble. I'm trying really hard to stay humble. I think we make awesome content, but
Yeah. We are the best.
yeah, we are the
Joe Rogan
best.
is nothing.
Don't stay humble. You are the best. No one is better than you.
It's episode 13.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan is trash. I
Yeah.
don't understand.
You're better than Joe Rogan. We're better than Joe Rogan.
This episode should have 1 million views.
Yeah. Yeah. We're being cheated somehow. I think the government is suppressing uh our podcast so that people can't listen to it because they know it's so great.
The Ivorian government.
There has to be some kind of conspiracy going on. Yeah, the Ivorian government is involved in this somehow, I'm sure.
Because I made fun of
Right.
them.
I'll bet
Yeah.
they're sending their assassins as we speak.
We are behind my door right now. All
Yeah.
right, guys, we end it here.